Sure, you've heard about respiration and glycolysis. So let me ask you a question. What gives an organism energy? For example, a human. Is it digestion or is it respiration? I want you to comment your answer on the comment section. Okay, have you done that? So the answer is, in fact, respiration. Respiration is the chemical process that enables organisms to have energy. So it's a process whereby the cells break down glucose and other molecules in the body. And when such molecules are broken down, they produce or release energy in form of ATP. And so respiration has three main stages: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the ETC, also called the electron transport chain. So those are the things you need to keep in mind. So if I'm asking you questions like, what are the three main stages of respiration? You should be able to tell me glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Okay? So we need to understand what glycolysis is. From the word glycolysis, it is actually glucose that is being broken down, because glyco means sugar and lysis means to break down something. So when we say glycolysis, we are talking about the breaking down of glucose, and glucose is a 6-carbon molecule. It's broken down into two 3-carbon molecules. That means one glucose molecule gets broken into two 3-carbon molecules. So this diagram will be able to explain it better. As you can see, just one glucose molecule gets broken into 2 molecules of pyruvate each. Do you understand? And it occurs in the cytoplasm. You need to know where it occurs and what it generates. It generates ATP and NADH. Then another thing you need to understand about glycolysis is that it is in 10 steps. Not 9, not 3, not 2, not 1. So we have 10 series of biochemical reactions that occur during glycolysis. So take note of the substance and the products and the enzyme. When I say the substance, that is what is being changed. The product is what it is changing into. And then the enzyme is the catalyst responsible for the change. So the first substance in number 1 is glycolysis, right? And it's changed into glycose 6-phosphate, which is G6P. And the enzyme responsible is hexokinase. ATP is used for that reaction. Then in step 2, the GCP is then transformed into F6P, which is fructose 6-phosphate, and the enzyme responsible is phosphoglucose isomerase. Don't be scared, I'm not going to ask you all of this in your exams, but at least you should know the meaning of G6P and F6P. Make sure you know all the acronyms or the abbreviations of all these important molecules in glycolysis. So number 3 goes like that: fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-biphosphate, and the enzyme is phosphofructokinase 1, abbreviated as PFK1. ATP is used. So you can see that in step 1, ATP is used, but ATP is not used in step 2. ATP is used in step 3. So put that in your mind, that in step 1 and in step 3, ATP is used. Then in step 4, the fructose 1,6-biphosphate is being transformed through a series of biochemical reaction into G3P, which is glyceride 3-phosphate, and DHAP, which is dihydroxyacetone phosphate, and the enzyme responsible is the aldolase. So I don't want to bore you with all these reactions, but just know that there are like 10 steps, and you can go each of those steps. Like I told you before, I want you to tell me where ATP is used. ATP is used in step 1, right? Step 3, step 7, ATP is produced in step 7. Then in step 10, ATP is produced. So the end is that you are going to have your 2 molecules of pyruvate. after the 10th step of glycolysis. And it is those two molecules of pyruvate that will enter into the Krebs cycle. But before they enter into the Krebs cycle, they will first of all be transitioned or transformed into acetyl-CoA. So that's why that part is called a transition reaction. So they will first of all enter into the mitochondria. You know, glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm of the cell. Then it will enter into the mitochondria and gets converted into acetyl-CoA by another important enzyme. It is that acetyl-CoA that will enter into the Krebs cycle. And there will be a lot of reactions. Now you need to know the two important cofactors that are produced from the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle is another series of biochemical reaction. But what you need to take note of is that NADH and FADH2, two powerful reducing agents, are produced. So if I ask you what are the reducing agents produced after a Krebs cycle reaction, you should tell me NADH and FADH2. So I can put FADH1, FADH3, I can put NADH1 or NADH2 in your exam. So you need to tell me is NADH and FADH2. Then after that, electron transport chain. So the NADH and the FADH2 from the Krebs cycle will not donate electrons, or we donate electrons rather, to the ETC in the inner mitochondrial membrane. And that is what will drive a kind of gradient, as if the protons are sliding down, that will produce your ATP. And so a lot of ATP will be released or generated during the electron transport chain. Oxygen will be reduced by these powerful reducing agents, and then you can have a lot of ATP. So generally, glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm and it produces pyruvate, it produces ATP and NADH. Then there will be a transition reaction where pyruvate will be converted into acetyl-CoA, and that happens in the mitochondria. Then the Krebs cycle is on the matrix of the mitochondria. It's not on the inner, it's on the matrix. So you see what is happening here. Then the acetyl-CoA will give out all these coenzymes and reducing agents like FADH2 and NADH, carbon dioxide and ATP. Then finally, the electron transport chain happens in the inner mitochondrial membrane, and that is where we are going to have oxidative phosphorylation, because oxygen will be reduced by all these cofactors and a lot of ATP will be produced. So take note of all of these things, okay? You can go through the notes once more in the video. If you think you have to copy some important things like probably the definition for respiration, glycolysis and all of that, you can pause and then you can take down some key jottings.